he's forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. How about it for Michael Shure, everyone?
I met Lou Gossett once, and he told that story. Lazy Susan, some guy hits it, and the beer goes flying.
Yeah, it was quite the incident in my life. You could see it landed in my memory, but apparently with Lou's, it just it kind of blended in to all the other stuff. But Michael Shure, there was quite the media event last night at Radio City, where you had the ghosts of presidents past all show up there and help out Joe Biden. I mean, and help out the cause of democracy was one of the things that was sort of on the docket. I wonder if you could speak to the fundraising element. I think they raised $26 million apparently. And
yeah, they did. They raised a lot of money. The Democrats are raising a lot more money. They're far outpacing the Republicans, and it's events like that in New York. Look, if you are inclined to give money to a political party and you can have 3 presidents at the event, those are the events you're going to go and you're going to give money to. So it's it's the good fortune of being able to do that, and having a robust Barack Obama and Bill Clinton be there for the president. And I think what you learned is too that Biden has the backing of the party, but I think he also has the backing of his former boss. And I think that is going to be a big part of this. Barack Obama has been in a little bit of the political wilderness over the past couple of years by his choosing and by the natural fact that that's what happens to former presidents most often. And I think he's going to be a big part of this election. You're going to see a lot of Barack Obama out in the field this summer, trying to drum up support for Joe Biden.
In these situations, we only saw a little bit of a clip, but Biden seemed pretty much all there. I mean, this idea somehow that he's, I thought that was dispelled on some level, the idea that he doesn't know where he is or whatever he's been, that was dispelled, I thought, during the State of the Union. We talked about that on the show, I think, with you. And again last night, he seems fairly quick and with it. And I don't see him slowing particularly, and yet that seems. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I don't think this is a conversation that they want to have happen every single time the president shows up to an event.
Okay.
But it's one that people have. So I think the more that he does, and the more that people see him, it's both good and bad, because there's more of a chance for him to do what Joe Biden's done for a 50-year career in politics, which is make mistakes, stumble, and say things that he probably shouldn't have said. So when it happens and there is this cloud over him that's been put over him by his opponents because he's the president now, then you sort of look at it a little more carefully than you would. It's he's also succeeded in politics. I think we can safely say at this point, having become president, vice president, and a 6-term senator, to the point where when he makes a mistake, you're looking for it. And I think the issue that they're trying to say in the Biden campaign is, yes, whether you think we should have an 81-year-old president or not, or candidate, he is the president. He's fine. That's a separate conversation from whether it should be this 81-year-old, because he's the candidate right now. I think it's I think it's going to dog him throughout this campaign. But the more he does things like he did last night in the State of the Union, the more it will calm Democratic voters and younger Democratic voters too.
I was seeing that in the whole business of the new branding of yourself in politics as the loudest voice in the room, the most extreme voice in the room, particularly on the House side, this stuff exists. Marjorie Taylor Greene is making the same rumbling she was making around Kevin McCarthy toward Mike Johnson, which is really, let's replace him. At the same time, sort of to placate her, it seems as though Johnson is throwing her a bone.
Well, yeah, I mean, Johnson's
putting her in charge of the impeachment investigation, right?
Right, but I think that's also, it can be looked at in a couple of different ways. It could be saying this makes us seem extreme. This makes us seem as if we're distracted and only going after the politics of personal assassination. So let's give it to Marjorie because they already think that of her. Let's distance ourselves from it. So while it can be looked at as kind of a promotion or a taking seriously of Representative Greene, I think that there's also in it if she was the waitress, we give her the outside tables in February, and I think that it's that kind of a thing.
It's interesting because when you say that, it makes obviously sense, and it also suggests that there's an effort to marginalize her, and yet she is such a loud voice. It's a remarkable thing that her brand has really cut through.
Well, she likes the attention, and she gets it from Donald Trump, and she gets it. If you're elected as a representative, you're one of 435, and you can sort of amplify your voice as much as you care to do that. You can join with others to do it, and you can do it on your own. But it's the fault of the media because wherever she goes, there are many microphones, including my own.
Sure.
If she's there, I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to talk to her as a representative, but I'm not going to, I'm not going to cross the street just because it's Marjorie Taylor Greene. There are others that I would probably want to speak to more, but she does bring that attention. She has a caustic mouth. And so there are things that she's going to say that are going to get attention. And I think in terms of the partisan part of politics, that Mike Johnson has her right where he wants her. He's trying to move toward the middle. He is a lot like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and that their politics probably align or certainly they did, let's say 2, 3, 4 years ago. Now he's the Speaker of the House, so he has a different kind of job, and he's got to herd the cats of the Republican caucus. And giving her something to occupy her also serves the function of keeping her away from some of the important and serious work they have to do until she shows up and says things about that as well.
And this is a great point you just made, and one I hadn't even really thought of is the way that Mike Johnson, as loathsome as I think he is, has actually moderated his loathsomeness or his extremism because of, as you suggested, his new role as and I just want to remind everybody, or just put a specific on it. Again, this impeachment trial to which I was referring is the Mayorkas impeachment, and so Johnson has put her in charge of that. And again, that's sort of a dead end trial. That's why I love that comparison that Michael just suggested, which is, the outside table in February is going to be your section. So she gets something, but it's really nothing. Again, and it's being asked in the chat, why do you need to placate her? It's because you do want to hang on to that speakership, right? And she could make enough noise to at least create a charge to remove him or to try to remove him. Isn't that why?
Yeah, no question. You also have to understand this is a conference that voted to impeach Mayorkas. So there are people that are sympathetic to, and it may even be Johnson, that are sympathetic to the work of this impeachment and her positions. I mean, I'm not defending them or assailing them. I'm just saying that's sort of the natural way that it happened. So it's popular within their caucus. People know that they have to sort of deal with her in a certain way. And so if you don't placate her in a way, she can only come back to bite you.
I was reading something this week about what Americans vote on, and because so much is made of the economy and how people vote the economy, they vote their pocketbook, which has always traditionally made sense. But even as an economy starts to come back, and there's even talk of dropping interest rates, and you see that we're doing better as an economy than any other economy in the developed world coming out of COVID, it doesn't seem to cut through the messaging, the polling, whatever you want to talk about. None of it seems to reflect that that the Democrats are getting traction on this issue. So anyway, what I was reading about, which was that people have now kind of morphed into, and you're just the guy to ask about this because you're out there at these rallies and you really talk to more people probably who represent both a moderate sense of the other side and extremist sense of the other side than anybody else I know. People are associating politics with identity, with personal identity, with ego. And as a result, it's very hard to move them off of wherever they are. Now, you do talk to some extremists, but I think you also cross-pollinate with those who aren't as extreme. Can you give me your take on politics in the modern age now?
Well, in terms of, well, I mean, listen, everybody, are you talking about the egos of voters themselves, or the
Yeah,
egos?
the egos of voters themselves, right?
Yeah, and so I think that, first of all, it's very difficult. The more divided you become, the more you're forced to take a side. As tribalism sets in, it feels to many voters like you just have to either be absolutely tribal or just sort of sit this one out, and that's why so many reporters are skeptical of the independent voter. I think the independent voter is a much more dying breed than we give it credit for. However, I do think that there are many Republicans who are very soft on their support of Donald Trump, and I think that there are many in the constituencies that Democrats count on that are not motivated necessarily. Not that they're going to come out for Trump, but getting voters out to vote at all in an election like the one that's coming up in November is going to be difficult. So I think ego seeps in that way. I also think that where there's, I don't know that I buy it, the ego thing as much. I do think that people are skeptical on the Republican side now of the power of their vote, because so many of them in polling think that the last election was rigged, even though we know it was not. And so I think being powerless and having egos run at each other, they don't jive really well. But I think that in terms of knowing, if you are a very passionate voter, knowing that your work in terms of your candidate can raise your esteem in your community, well then, yeah, I think that that's where ego comes in. I don't know. I think the modern voter is still thinking about their pocketbooks. Nobody even says pocketbook anymore. Women say handbag, men say handbag, but they are thinking about the cost of living. They're thinking about, I mean, I think it's the loaf of bread voter this year, from what I've been able to tell. People say, I can't believe a loaf of bread is still as expensive as it is since Joe Biden took office. Well, it predates that, right? It goes back into the
Sure.
Trump administration as well. But I think that's where you sort of touch the old time voter. I don't think much has changed, Mark. I don't think that we're in an evolution of how we look at our vote in America. Not enough people vote. And I think the people that do it for the same reasons they always have, personally.
A loaf of bread is more delicious under a Biden administration, though, wouldn't you say, even though the price is the same?
Well, it is, yeah, unless, yes.
This is the Happy Meal. Mark says Champagne. A Happy Meal is like $10. What's so happy about that? I mean, I don't know what the Happy Meal costs. I get it. Things cost more.
Yeah.
But my question was really
If your happiness is derived from a Happy Meal, maybe
Yeah.
maybe there are other directions
or
to go,
maybe
but
that's
I
a
also
great
don't know how
thing.
much one is and how much it ought to be. But what that person who wrote in is saying is exactly the same thing, right? That's their loaf of bread, and that's
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's their loaf of bread.
Yeah.
Exactly. Look, there's some other stuff going on, and it's interesting political gamesmanship, and I wonder if we can just visit it quickly. The Republican passed a bill in Kentucky that takes away the governor, who is a Democrat, takes away the governor's ability to appoint a replacement for Mitch McConnell for the Senate seat if there were a vacancy from Mitch McConnell's seat. Normally, it's a gubernatorial responsibility to appoint a successor, right?
It is. I mean, that's how it has always been traditionally, and the Constitution requires that a governor appoint, or the state appoint. I don't know that it's the governor. The state appoint a replacement. You cannot do that in a House race. You have to set a special election, but in a Senate race, you appoint the senator. And it's when you have dual party control. So you have the Republican House in Kentucky, the Republican legislature, and the Democratic governor. This is how they try and sort of cut the knees off from under a Democratic governor. It may set a precedent. People have been upset about it in the past. I don't know how it would be treated. I mean, this is a question for a lawyer or a constitutional lawyer more than that. I don't know how it would be treated constitutionally, and whether or not even that legislation were to pass. Unless they say, well, the legislature is going to select this replacement and not the governor. I don't know how well that will do.
Well, it's interesting because they did pass legislation, but the governor has to sign it, right?
Right.
And then the
And he will,
governor,
and Bashir will veto it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it'll take 2/3 in their legislature to actually get it through. They want to, at least in this existing bill, they want a special election. That's what they're saying. They
Right.
don't
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
give.
But
Yeah.
that's not, see, that's what they can't do. I mean, the legislature, and again, I'm going to grain of salt this because I'm not the right person for this necessarily. But what they will try and do, what they might be able to do is say that the legislature itself could select that replacement. But I don't think a special election can be called in a Senate election or a Senate vacancy. I think the Constitution itself says the state has to decide it in whatever way, has to be appointed.
Anything to watch in the week ahead, Michael, besides my Truth Social stock soaring for yet another week? And
No, I'm so proud of you. I'm so impressed.
Yes,
and I
thank you.
can't
Thank
wait
you.
till you buy dinner.
Yeah,
There's never been anything like this.
there really hasn't.
No, there really has never been any. I mean, no, I think the things to watch right now are, I think it's time to start paying attention to some of these Senate races, seeing where the parties are spending their money, seeing who becomes vulnerable and, what issues are coming. I mean, housing is an issue. I think Jerome Powell, the Fed saying, well, we're not going to do it this time. We're going to lower them soon. But Powell then coming out and saying, well, we don't really have to lower them soon because things actually look kind of good. We're stable. That doesn't create confidence in an economy. And I think that you're going to see people talking about that and trying to press the Fed into doing something or being a little more decisive and a little less soft on those sorts of things. But no, I mean, in terms of the electoral stuff that I'm following, I think we start to see soon how Trump's schedule is affected by it. He's got 2 events next week in the Midwest, but he's also going to be going on trial pretty soon. And he had a good day and a bad day the other day when his bail was lowered or his appeal money was lowered, but at the same time, they didn't change the date of his hush money trial in New York. And then, of course, we'll wait to see what the judge in Atlanta says about whether or not that case should be dropped, as Trump's lawyers asked for it to be yesterday. So I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the whole backdrop of the trial and trial docket schedule, it's all going to become more relevant in the next couple of months. So
yeah, and we'll see if it is relevant, though. I mean, that's the thing. Yes, it becomes more relevant, but in the sort of era of nothing matters,
right?
Does something as big as this even matter?
No, exactly. Alice in Wonderland is where we are. So, but I mean,
Yeah.
it'll be relevant to his travel schedule. Maybe I'll say that.
Certainly, yeah, and his ability
to be everywhere at once. Love watching your stuff. I know you've gotten this kind of virality through all of your stuff, attending these various rallies
you
and talking.
Can't get in virility, get it in virality.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a ding ding somewhere in there. Michael, we adore you and we look forward to the next time. Thanks. Michael Shure, everybody.
Thanks.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.